Okay, quick video. So the 3.3 special program just finished, and this is probably a stepping stone patch for Genshin Impact. Let's just get that right out of the way. Now I'm going to talk about two things in this video really quickly. It's the events that we saw as well as the TCG. I'm not going to talk about the other stuff because that's moderately kind of standard, new characters, new quests. It's literally nothing important. These characters aren't going to make or break anything. They're pretty generic. But moving on to the events, this is the part that could potentially make Genshin Impact a funner and more interesting game to play on the day-to-day kind of week-to-week basis if they do this correctly and do this consistently. Now, if we're taking a look at the footage right now, the first event that was talked about in the special program, which is the, I don't know its fucking name, but the spooky forest with the jumpy scare stuff, right? We're actually just playing Pong, by the way, but the spooky event. This event is what we need from Genshin and future events in Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact events should not be overly story-based, overly interesting in terms of like lore and depth and character backstory. We don't need that in events. We need that in actual character and Archon quests. Keep the events fun and just kind of silly goose time. Keep it a silly goose time, dude. That's all we need from the events. And this event seems to be doing that. And there's been a few events in the past that kind of come close. Wind Trace is one of them that was also in this special program. But there are a few in the past that kind of play on this little bit of a fun time thing. But what we see right now is Pong. Now, this kind of spooky event, I don't know its name again, but this event has multiple challenges, and this Pong event or Pong game mode is just one of them. I have extremely high hopes, and I say hopes because it's copium as fuck, that the rest of the challenges will also be fun little mini games. You know, balloon popping, I don't know, some sort of, I don't know, Space Invaders, maybe, I don't know, just some random mini game that can be fun and played just randomly. Now, they did mention co-op for the Pong event. That would be interesting. They didn't show it, but they did mention it. I'm also excited about that. But that's, I think, going to be one of the stepping stones because Genshin needs to move away from the story, or the events rather, having the story connotation and lore connections, because that's what happened with the Unraveling Stars event, or whatever, Unreconciled Stars event, where it had lore connotations, and they got into a bit of a mix-up, denying that it had story like input and whatnot, and then it's like a kerfuffle, and people don't know whether to keep it as a story thing, even though it is meant to be. But whatever, first introduction of Scaramouche, just remove the fucking story from it to begin with. That's the solution. Have it be its own standalone gimmick thingy, and then have fun in the event, right? That's what the events are there for. And with that, they should then also continue to add more lore quests for characters and whatnot, and more frequent stuff. I think that would be a better way to expand upon it. They can just randomly chuck in a quest for some stuff that happened in the past. It wouldn't fucking break the immersion too much. I don't think people would be overly dissatisfied with that, but that's a bold statement for the Genshin Impact community. But moving on to the next event, it's this random kind of collecting bubbles across the maps kind of event. Now, this might be thinking, like, what the hell is this? This looks kind of just like generic event. This, in my opinion, is a good event for one and one reason only. If we look at prior events that required us to collect items and jump around and do some doohickeys, much like the domain challenges that we had, like the coin collecting one, I can't fucking remember its name, it was like eons ago, Divine Ingenuity, that's what it was called. If we look at that event, we were put into a custom-made domain. Now that obviously is not a bad thing because it's custom-made, it's unique, it's interesting, right? But the problem to me is that Genshin Impact prides itself on its fun and interesting open world. It has an immaculate open world with curves, edges, sharp turns, bends, jinks and jonks all over the place. It's fucking amazing. But it doesn't use it for any of its events. It rarely does, you know, and I'm talking about using an area, not like a small location. I'm talking about using a massive area. And this event, the bubble collecting one, has the chance to do that. And I say chance, it probably will from the images that we've seen, but essentially you collect bubbles across a large body of area in the open world of Genshin Impact. Now, as for the difficulty, let's not talk about that. It's probably going to be piss easy like most of the events, but This is going to be an interesting one because you go to random different locations and you have to maneuver your way around collecting bubbles, right? The first showcase was in Mondstadt where you have to jump across the buildings and whatnot and do a bit of parkour here and there. Now, obviously, let's analyze this right now. The characters that you're going to want in your party: Venti, Kazuha, Scaramouche. If you don't have those, you're going to get the worst time possible. But besides that, the next area we go to is like the Alcor, and then one after that is like somewhere in Sumeru, and then another one is like Port Almost or whatever. I don't know what it's called. But yeah, you go to these different areas and you just have to jump around, collect these bubbles, go to hidden nooks and crannies, get underneath the rug, look in the cupboard, discover Narnia, or you have to do all these interesting things in this area. I say interesting, it's just running around really. But you have to do these things in an area and have a bit of fun, instead of going into a random made limited time domain and then have it disappear in about 3 days because time gated, or time limited time rather. Right, this is a lot better format. And that's really the only good part about this event that I have high hopes for, is the fact that it may make MiHoYo use their open world a lot more, in a bit more of an interesting and fun way, instead of just killing enemies or something like that. So this is that one. And then the other two events, like Wind Trace, they changed that a bit. I'm just going to say this now. I think the Hunters have the advantage. If you watch the stream, they talked about some buffs and nerfs and whatnot to certain things. I think the Hunters have the advantage in the next version of it, coming in 3.3, but that's just my take. And the other event, I can't remember. It must not be relevant. But the other thing that I want to mention is the TCG. Now, the TCG has been hyped up since 3.1. For quite a while now. It's obviously it's pretty important. It's a trading card game. Now, this is probably going to be, for a lot of people, the saving grace for the game. This is going to be something else to do, something else to grind. Now, as much as I want to say that I love it, and I do love it, I think it looks amazing. I looked at a lot of the gameplay. It looks very interesting. The mechanics, the elemental reactions, they are very much using their elemental reaction system with the TCG, which is a fucking divine choice, immaculate choice there. And it looks absolutely phenomenal, and probably a lot of content. My only problem is that they didn't talk about two specific things. Maybe it's because they didn't mention it, that it is time gated, but I have concerns about that. Because if we looked at the UI that they showcased throughout the whole thing, it followed the similar UI like the tree system from Inazuma and the Aranara plant system from Sumeru, it being time gated behind patches. Now, that's my concern with this thing. I have a concern that this is going to be a time gated system where you're going to have to come back patchly, or every so often in a patch, maybe like per phase or something, or once a patch, once every second patch. I have a concern that you're going to have to come back infrequently to actually make progress. If it is this way, I'm going to say it, that this event is not, or this, permanent game mode is not going to be overall favored, because coming back to something once a patch to get minimal rewards and play it minimally is not going to be overly exciting for anyone, to be quite frank. The way that I hope it is released is that on the launch day of 3.3, we have all aspects of the TCG available to us. We have all cards available, all grinds available, all levels, all rewards available to us. It's now up to the player to grind it out if they want it now or if they want it later. And then how they, like in the future, continuously update it is that per patch, or per however frequently they want to add things, they continue adding cards, and that also increases our rewards as things come out. So in patch 3.3, we have like 200 and something cards available. If you want, you can spend 12 hours just getting those goddamn 200 something cards, and then now you're done for this patch, and now you have everything available, and you go do whatever you want. And then in the next patch, they add, let's say, 20 something more cards. You sit down for like 2 to 3 hours, you grind out those cards. In my honest opinion, this is the much, much better way of releasing the system, instead of having it be spread out across like 6 different patches. And then in those 6 different patches, they also add more. And then it's super time gated and it's super like back and forth. Because the last thing I want is this card system to be like learned and then unlearned by the player base on and off. You play it for like about 2 days, maybe 1 hour each day or 2 hours each day, and then you don't play it for the rest of the patch, and then you come back next patch and you have to relearn the whole system. Okay, now you sit down for 2 days, learn it, and then you don't play it for the next patch. That is the last thing I want for this, because this could be an absolutely immaculate thing if the community does the TCG justice and holds its own tournaments. That would be an absolutely great thing in my opinion. And the other concern is that I'm not sure why this is super hardcore being advocated as a permanent system. I don't know if there's going to be, they didn't specify, and I guess maybe there might be some leaks or whatever about this, but the other concern is just like, is there going to be a reason to actually play this weekly, or is it just being advocated as a permanent system because people have been asking for a permanent system and they're just going to like market this as that to appease the permanent game mode seekers, right? I'm very curious if there's going to be a reason to play this weekly. Is there going to be Battle Pass achievements or Battle Pass challenges to do this weekly and get more XP to get to level 50 faster? Or is there actually going to be Primo Gem rewards attached to this to every week? You know, if you like win 3 matches on hard mode or something like that against 3 different players, or like, you know, NPCs that is, will you get a Primo Gem reward, or is it just going to be like Mora, Hero's Wit? What is the reward going to be? Because depending on what the reward is going to be, depends on if people will actually re-fucking play this, because I'm not going to replay this if I'm just going to get 3 Mora, because guess what? AR60 players get like 6,100 billion trillion Mora per daily commission. So that's the 2 concerns I have with the TCG, and that's kind of this whole video. It ended up being like, what, 12 minutes or so? My apologies that it was actually rather a lot longer than I wanted it to be, but 3.3 looks to be good, but I have my concerns, but hopefully the concerns aren't founded, because listen, this patch could be the saving grace, honestly, for Genshin Impact after that goddamn GameStop interview. God fucking damn it.